An FPL Game Week 8 wildcard draft. The international break is slowly drawing to a close, and I know a lot of you are looking to play your wildcard over the international break. So in today's video, we're going to have a look at what sort of team I would put together if I was going to play a chip. We'll talk about a few little bits of injury news, updates to the likes of Brennan Johnson and Bukayo Saka as well, all going into Game Week 8, who would likely be in most wildcard drafts this week. What is up everyone, FPL Harry here. Before we dive in, 2,000 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you're new around here. And it has been the international break, but we are back with a wildcard video. I actually recorded this on Wednesday or Thursday last week, about an hour before England played their first game against Greece. And then of course, Bukayo Saka went off injured, so I had to delete that video and wait for a little bit more news, which is why this video is a little bit later than maybe I'd want it to. If you're on wildcard, apologies it's a little bit late. Hopefully you've caught a few price changes and you've got your team a little bit in order going over the first week of the break. What we're going to do first, before we have a look at the team, is have a look at a little bit of that injury news, just because a couple of these players aren't going to be in the wildcard draft I'm going to put forward. And there is, of course, a slight bit of doubt. The first one is Bukayo Saka. He went off after 51 minutes in the England versus Greece game, was holding his hamstring, then was reported that he was returning back to Arsenal. However, the England manager, Lee Carsley, going into the game on Sunday, said he would have been touch and go to play that game on Sunday, but of course they didn't want to take any risks. He did return to Arsenal to continue his recovery, to have a scan and move from there. So for me, that's very positive news. I'd be surprised if he doesn't feature against Bournemouth. He is in the wildcard draft we're going to go through, but if he ends up not being available, do keep an eye on press conferences, do keep an eye on updates. He's in my team as well, so I'll have lots of updates for you throughout the week, but we are expecting Bukayo Saka back. The other one is Brennan Johnson of Wales. He went off with a slight kick. There was absolutely not much doubt and not much to be concerned about. He's not going to feature in their second game because he's picked up too many yellow cards. So when you see the Wales lineup and he's not in it, that's not because he is injured and he's unable to play. It's because he's unavailable for Wales. We are fully expecting Brennan Johnson to recover. They said it was just a kick and that he is fine. And he again should be available going into game week 8. So let's have a look at that first wildcard draft. I would be sticking with double arse defense, and we are going to go with David Raya, and then we're going to go with Gabriel in defense. I know they haven't been quite as good defensively over the past couple of weeks because they conceded to both Southampton and Leicester as well, but I do still think as the long-term picks, that is the best way to go. As the 4 million backup, we've just gone with Begovic. You could go with Fabianski. You could go with pretty much any 4 million you want. None of them look like they're going to play, and none of them are really issues in taking up a third spot in your lineup. Now, the second defender we'll come back to because there are a few picks in there and it might depend on what you do in one of the other positions, because this is a template, a sort of draft, a way of thinking. It's not necessarily an exact team that you'd want to build. Rico Lewis of Manchester City only played 15 minutes in the second England friendly, so I do expect him to be fine going into game week 8 and should start away at Wolves. Kyle Walker played 90 minutes in that game on Sunday evening, so I am expecting Lewis to play, and I just think Lewis at 4.8 still remains a great option at his price. We've then gone with Ryan Aït-Nouri at 4.4. They play Manchester City this week, which isn't ideal, but good long-term fixtures, and you can bench him this week. Again, the fixture this week's not fantastic, but Wolves have looked okay defensively, not fantastic, but it's pretty difficult to predict clean sheets outside the likes of Arsenal and maybe Liverpool this season. And his attacking threat has been there. 4 attacking returns so far this season. And then we've gone with Wout Faes. I do think if you've got the money, he's probably better than the likes of Greaves, the likes of Howard Bellis. The only other one that you could potentially look at is Van der Berg at Brentford. He is 4 million and should be continuing to start games, although when they do get recovery to the likes of Roslev and the likes of Rico Henry, it's not 100% guaranteed. So I would go with Wout Faes. We'll come back to that defender in a moment. Into midfield, there's also a midfielder who we're not 100% certain on. Bryan Mbeumo is in, again, one of the most, if not the most essential player in the game, given his price at the moment. Long-term fixtures continue to look really nice, and just at his value, I think he's the best player in the game around the 7 million up to about 9 million price bracket. Bukayo Saka is, of course, in. I did just speak about his potential injury. I am expecting him back, but we will hear from Arteta later in the week if he gives us any sort of information in that. We'll have to wait and see if we get any training photos, but I do think he'll be in a wild card unless we get absolute confirmation that he's going to be out for a while. We then also add Cole Palmer. Again, it's a difficult run of fixtures for Chelsea over the next 4, but I still think it's worth backing. And then we've gone with Brennan Johnson, who we also expect to be fine going into game week 8. Of course, I've actually gone with him over Dominic Solanke. I actually think Johnson at 6.5 is a better pick than Solanke. Solanke is dropping quite deep, whereas Johnson is one of the players running in behind, as it was Werner, as it will be Son when he returns from injury as well. So I do like Johnson at 6.5 over Solanke as a pick. Then we've gone with Chris Wood up front alongside Delap, so no room for Solanke. So we've gone with two slightly cheaper forwards. If you've got a little bit of team value and you want to go to the likes of Matheus Cunha, you want to go up to a Calvert-Lewin from a Delap or something like that, I don't mind it. But right now, with the fixtures coming up for Nottingham Forest and the Ipswich fixtures and the form that Wood and Delap are both in, they are the cheap forwards. And then we've gone with Erling Haaland, of course. I know there have been a couple of blanks, and I know some of you are asking in the comments, Harry, would you consider going without Erling Haaland? Not really. The only time I'm going to consider going without Erling Haaland is when I think Mo Salah can be a better asset than him in the game. And I don't think that's the case, so I'm going with Erling Haaland. Now, the two players that we don't have in the actual starting lineup at the moment, we have about 10.5, 10.7 million to spend, depending on what your team value are. So the two players that you've got in here will kind of depend on what your team value is looking like. Based on the team that I can build, I'd go with someone like a Leif Davies of Ipswich, along with a Semenyo of Bournemouth. In that Semenyo position, you could go to someone like a McNeil. You could go with someone like a Morgan Rogers. If you have lots of team value, you could go from Davies up to someone like a Kanate. You could go for a Gerald Kwanzaa. You could go for a Van de Ven. There are lots of options in there. If your team value is really, really bad, you could go from Semenyo down to someone like a Dibbling at Southampton as well. So a few options depending on what your team value is like, but I probably would go with Leif Davies of Ipswich because we don't have Greaves, and then Semenyo and bench him for a couple of weeks until his fixtures get better. Now, just a couple of things to cover. If Saka or Brennan Johnson don't look like they're going to be available going into the Game Week 8 deadline and you're on wildcard, I would probably punt on Phil Foden over Bukayo Saka, and I'd probably go with either Kulusevski or Maddison over Brennan Johnson if he is not going to be available as well. I don't mind Phil Foden as a punt, and we'll actually talk about him in my transfer targets video in a couple of days as well. But this is what I would go with because I do expect Saka and I do expect Brennan Johnson to be fine. Looking at a lineup going into this week, it would be a 3-4-3. You would be benching Aït-Nouri, Wout Faes, and you would of course be benching Semenyo in his fixture along with Begovic as well. That is a wildcard draft. We'll be back as per usual on Wednesday for transfer targets, Thursday for my team selection, and Friday for final decisions before a deadline stream on Saturday with the upcoming deadline. Any questions about the wildcard? Any questions about your team over the international break? Drop any questions you have about in the comment section down below. There will of course be the normal Know the Score podcast as well. If you are craving a little bit of content, go and check that out if you haven't already. If you're a repeat return subscriber to that channel, massively appreciated. 2,000 subscribers on that channel already. So if you want to go and check it out, new videos drop on Monday evenings at 6 o'clock every single week. We're doing a bit of a season review so far in the special international break episode. So go and check that out. Any questions you have, drop it in the comment section down below. 2,000 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you are new around here. And I'll be back again very soon.